And a good Monday morning to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here on 13 WMAZ Plus for a look at your extended forecast. It's a new week, so we have a lot to go over, especially covering some interesting things that did happen over the course of this past weekend, not only here back at home, but in many of our neighboring states. And then we'll get into what our forecast is setting up for the second official week of July, going to be more reminiscent of a typical summertime forecast. We actually did have our fair share of a couple dry days in a row, so that's where we will kick things off. Your 5-day rainfall totals. So this is going to be over all the way back until like July 2nd or July 3rd, I do in fact believe. And even at the very most, some localized areas of central Georgia barely got over 1 inch of rain. Maybe just about 2 inches of rain recorded to the east of Americus, just to the southwest of us here. But most areas only totaled a couple tenths of an inch of rain, or maybe even just a trace like you see up here in downtown Macon, not even enough to get a full tenth of an inch of rain. Now up here in eastern Putnam County, right here on the northern side of Lake Sinclair, Putnam and Baldwin County, getting over into Hancock County, about 2.3 inches of rain. This kind of was a hot spot for some rain. The Lake Sinclair, Lake Oconee areas over the last couple of days. And then just south of I-16, an inch and a half of rain north of Cochrane, but still not even a trace, or just only a trace of rain in Dublin, only a trace of rain down in Eastman, down in Vidalia just over 1 inch. Most of the rain and the higher totals were found to the east of us, down towards the southeast, towards the Georgia coast. And that was actually closer to where the center of circulation associated with Tropical Storm Chantal has continued to move up the eastern Atlantic coast. So a lot of the moisture was closer to where that system was spinning, where that center of low pressure did form. And this is the latest update. You see the advisory time right up here in the top right of your screen. The 5 a.m. advisory, another advisory will come out very shortly here at 11 a.m. And I imagine tropical depression now, Chantal, is probably just going to be a remnant low pressure system. So it's still going to be a big clump of moisture, still going to continue its path up to the north and the northeast. But right now it's kind of in the eastern Virginia area. Actually, some of the cloud cover stretching into the Washington, D.C. metro area, in portions of Maryland, the Chesapeake Bay area, and then eventually we'll be moving over towards the state of Delaware. So right now, Chantal only has 30 mile per hour winds compared to about 45 to 50 mile per hour winds when it did make landfall. Pressure is up to 1,009 millibars. So when you get a pressure that's above 1,000 millibars, it's not too strong of a tropical system, but it still is a little bit below our standard sea level pressure. And then you get into the movement right here, northeast at 15 miles per hour. So it's not moving at the fastest speed we've ever seen, but the higher north it goes into some of these lines of latitude that are a little farther north, it will pick up some speed as it does continue to probably move off the Atlantic coast of the United States. It may send some impacts in the form of just some showers, maybe even some thunderstorms into portions of the mid-Atlantic portion of the country around Philadelphia, New Jersey, maybe even a couple of showers and storms up near the New York area and Long Island. But this is where Chantal does currently stand. It doesn't look like it has much more of a lifespan. Let's take a look at your hurricanes names list, and we were talking about Chantal is going to be that next one, the third named storm. Tropical Storm Andrea formed in the northern Atlantic Ocean about 2 weeks ago. As quick as it formed, it did dissipate in that cooler water in the northern Atlantic. Didn't impact any land masses. However, Tropical Storm Barry formed over in the western Gulf, and that moved onshore into the dry desert terrain of eastern Mexico. So it did result in some inland flooding in portions of eastern Mexico, but it moved over that dry air mass, so it didn't hold its structure together too much longer. However, it did have its fair share of impacts this past weekend, not really as a named storm whatsoever, but some of the moisture associated with what was left of that low pressure system did move farther up to the north into central Texas. And of course, many of you have probably seen the tragic implications that has had so far, and still forecasted to have some impacts over the next couple of days because they are including more rain chances, some slow moving thunderstorms that are going to continue to dump even more rain onto the vast amount that has already fallen in portions over there. So our thoughts and prayers, of course, go out to everyone in the Central Texas community and friends and family of those that have been affected. But Barry did form as our second named storm, and then Chantal formed over the course of this past weekend. It made landfall near the Myrtle Beach area in South Carolina, moved inland into the Carolinas, and then kind of took a turn back out to the northeast. Has moved through southern Virginia, eastern Virginia now, and is making its way towards the D.C. metro area, Maryland, getting over into Delaware, all those areas in the Chesapeake Bay area. So if we are to get another area of potential development, the next name on the list would be our fourth name, which is Dexter, and then we're going to continue to follow all of these lists of names until we reach the very end, or if we don't reach the end. Last year during hurricane season, I believe we got to the S or the T letter on the list. One of the last ones I do remember forming was Raphael, but I believe we may have climbed down to S or T. But still, that was definitely an above average year last year. We'll see how we shape up in terms of how many names we do claim as we go into a more frequent time of the tropical season heading into the next couple of months. Really towards the end of July into August is when we start to finally see that uptick in activity. So let's take a look at your outlook as a whole. This is as of 8 a.m. or earlier this morning, and you can see a lot of that faint brown color over behind this banner where it says no activity expected in the next 7 days. This is kind of what I'm talking about, these very thin and faint areas of dust that does exist down in the Caribbean Sea as well. And back in the Gulf, maybe seeing some hints of some of that dry air. Anytime you have any of the Saharan dust or any desert dust, that drier air that moves over some of that warm water, which is primed for tropical development, it can inhibit it. There's a lot of wind shear associated with it as well, and that can disrupt circulation. But that's where things do stand as of 8 a.m. this Monday. Other than Tropical Depression Chantal, the Atlantic is all quiet, and Chantal shouldn't have much more of a lifetime. So I did mention the frequency of these tropical systems is going to go up as we go throughout the next couple of days. We're still not even quite to this July 10th timestamp, and virtually haven't seen too much fluctuation between the tropical storm activity, the hurricane activity, but we have seen 3 named storms already in this very quiet period. And then you can see that these yellow and red shaded areas only continue to go up after we get to July 10th, as we go into the end of July, the beginning of August, which is this next timestamp, and then September 10th, right here smack dab in the middle, where you do see the peaks of both of those two hills. That's going to be the official peak of hurricane season, which means we get the most frequency of potential areas of development, tropical storms, hurricanes, and such. So as we continue throughout the next couple of months, the waters are only going to get warmer. We'll look at some of that dust to fall apart, and then the Atlantic Ocean will be primed once again for some tropical development. The season began on June 1st, so we're a little over a month into the 2025 hurricane season, and it's not going to end until the very last day of November. Once you get into the month of November, it is a very quiet month. Actually, even a whole lot more quiet at the very end of hurricane season compared to the very beginning right here. So we still haven't seen much activity whatsoever, but once we cross the calendar into November, that's when activity should really start to calm down. So back here at home, doesn't look like anything tropical is going to impact our forecast over the course of this week. So take a guess at what your main headline is. Yes, that blistering hot heat once again feels like numbers well above 100 degrees for the next couple of days. And while our temperatures do warm and we see plenty of humidity in the forecast, daily shower and storm chances are going to pop up back into the picture, but not quite getting a start to it today on Monday for the beginning of your work week. And then as we head into the weekend, some temperatures are actually expected to cool just a little bit, maybe not feeling all too different, but this is in light of some better coverage of some rain as we head into the end of your work week. So let's take a look across the quad. We do have some thin high-level clouds that aren't blocking too much sunshine, but they are making things maybe look a little bit gloomy. Downtown Macon, down at the Georgia National Fairgrounds, here in Warner Robins. Facing this way in Dublin, I believe this is over to the northwest, we actually do have some ample sunshine, and it looks like we have a lot of that sunlight that's beaming across some of the buildings in downtown. But temperature-wise, we haven't really had cloud cover stick around to keep us cooler in some areas. If it has been anywhere, it's really been in our westernmost counties this morning, but those temperatures are still hovering around what everyone else is here coming up on the 11 a.m. hour. Low to mid, maybe even some upper 80s. I think 88 is the warmest up in Milledgeville. over to Swainsboro and Emmanuel County, and everyone else may be hovering a couple degrees below those numbers. And now let's take it over to your moisture content, and we are finally seeing the building back of some of these areas of the very dark green. We had them present in patches throughout this weekend. However, we did have our fair share of areas that were also shaded in some light green, which are dew point temperatures a little bit below the 70-degree mark, maybe 68, 69 degrees for the dew point temperatures. But that can make all the difference for not feeling as warm above your actual temperature and inhibiting some rain chances, not necessarily a lot of moisture to work with during these summertime months. And hopefully we can continue to see areas of the light green build in throughout today. And I do believe that is going to actually happen. But the state of Georgia as a whole is seeing these patchy areas of some of the light green, so some of the lesser humidity, and it's obviously present up in the Appalachian Mountains, just typically a drier environment. If we do see maybe more of that light green take over the state later on this afternoon, it is going to do a number for inhibiting our rain chances, which that does look to be in the forecast. Still can't rule out a couple showers, maybe even a low thunderstorm or low-end thunderstorm, but your feels like numbers, when we factor in that humidity, feeling pretty close to the triple digits already. Areas like Milledgeville, areas like Gordon feeling like 98 degrees, 97 in Eatonton, 97 in Sparta. Some other areas maybe hovering in the 80s still, but it does look like a good mix of some 90s and maybe some upper 80s. The winds aren't too much of a factor. The only day that the winds have really been a factor recently was this past Saturday. The closer that center of circulation with Chantal moved onshore, it did create some gusty conditions coming in from the north and the northeast, a breeze up to 20 to 25 miles per hour, but it was blowing some relatively dry air, so that breeze actually did feel pretty nice during the day on Saturday afternoon. So your heat index forecast for today, it doesn't look like we have too much longer to go until we reach that peak. Somewhere around 101, at least up here in Macon, is where we have that heat index topping out at. But it's not for just 1 hour maybe, and then we get some showers to provide for some rain-cooled air. This is looking to be fairly long-lived today. From about 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., we're already at the triple digits from 1 p.m. into 5 p.m., and then even only a tick below that at 6 and 7 o'clock. So it is looking to be a mostly dry day to allow for those values to climb up as high as they can get. So satellite and radar picture is picking up on a lot of the cloud cover that we've had all morning long. It was more present farther over to the west this morning, and it still is, but maybe pushing back a little bit over towards the east throughout today. We have a slight westerly breeze right now, so that can be helping contribute to this cloud cover pushing a little bit farther into our neck of the woods. But not a bad thing whatsoever. It could help you cool some of those temperatures down just a touch. So let's go into your surface map where there really isn't a lot going on here in the east and the southeast United States. Obviously, Texas has been a big talking point with everything going on with the flooding over there, and they still have more rain already in the forecast around the Austin area just south of Dallas. Central Texas is still forecasted to have some slow-moving thunderstorms pop up during the heat of the day, plenty of moisture over in those areas. So of course, hopefully many people over there are looking out and heeding many warnings that could get issued throughout the rest of today because they are already very, very much oversaturated with all of their dry soil there in the hill country. Now taking a look at something we don't throw on the surface map every day. This is TD Chantal, so Tropical Depression Chantal, right now still making its push up to the north and the northeast. This boundary up here will kind of help guide Chantal all the way out towards the east into the Atlantic Ocean, but there still is its fair share of moisture associated with it that can sprout some showers on the eastern seaboard of the United States. But this frontal boundary not going to move much. It's going to maybe push down a little bit farther south, but it's not expected to make its push down into the south and the southeast. So it's going to kind of act as a blocking mechanism over the next couple of days, and it's going to lock us in to another sector of that warm and that humid air mass, which will contribute to scattered showers and some thunderstorms each and every day. So yesterday's numbers, we were right on par for our average high, 93 degrees, about 8 degrees shy of the record back in 1980, 101. Still haven't seen any numbers get above that triple-digit mark or even just to the triple-digit mark. The highest temperature we've recorded so far was 98 degrees, and it was sometime at the end of the month of June. But we haven't lucked out with much rain recently, which is not a bad thing because you can still tell we are well above average 4 inches above average where we should be this time of year. But like I said, that number this time last week was closer to the 5-inch mark. So we did have a really good cushion to enter a fairly dry stretch of not recording much rain. So we can continue to see that number get a little bit lower and lower. And we're still not starving in terms of some moisture. All your backyard gardens are still very well hydrated. A lot of the water levels in the rivers are still fairly high. Even last week, we were looking at levels in the Okmulgee to be a little bit too high. So many people couldn't go floating on the river. I believe it was July 3rd. And then finally, halfway through the day on July 4th itself, they did open back up Amerson River Park. But still, you never want to have those river water levels that can get too high, and you don't want to have too much water at one time. So sunrise yesterday was at 6:33, sunset at 8:46. Sunset has not wavered in time really over the last week or so, but that sunrise has gotten a little bit later each and every day. So your forecast for your Monday afternoon, a few showers is mainly what I think we'll see in the way of rain today. I wouldn't rule out a low-end thunderstorm, as you can see indicated by the thunderstorm icon I put on the Today graphic. But today is looking to be the driest of the next week, basically in terms of the lowest rain chance that I have forecasted. I don't quite think most everyone is going to see much in the way of rain. It's going to be very similar to many days this past weekend. You could luck out and maybe catch some form of heavy rainfall or just a light shower or such, and hopefully that will do you some relief, because a high temperature of 96, that's not even going to be what it feels like. I showed you that heat index map already, but this would be a slightly higher temperature than what we hit yesterday, so it would in turn increase some of those heat indice values. So let's go through Future View, see if we can pick up anything in the way of rain today. And each time we're coming live on this Weather Impact extended forecast stream, I'm getting a new run of Future View sometime just before 10:30 each and every morning. So I'm looking at this for the first time in real time with all of you that are watching. Scattered showers mainly, but it does look like we don't see much coverage of rain. If we do see coverage of rain, I think it will be the farther south that you live. And then we go into the nighttime hours, activity fizzles out as we lose that surface heating, and then we go into a mostly dry start to your Tuesday. This is 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Still looking nice and good to go. Hopefully we don't have too much in the way of cloud cover for a gorgeous sunrise. But the only downside of that is we're very quick to warm up when we don't have clouds in the picture. A couple days last week did start out rather gloomy, so we hung out in the 70s for a little bit longer, and our high temperatures didn't get as warm in the afternoon hours. So with a clear start to tomorrow, and I do believe that the moisture content will build back a little bit more muggy than what we are seeing today. Some of those dew point temperatures, we definitely have our patchy areas of very dark green color, but I think that dark green is going to be a little bit more widespread tomorrow, which will increase the coverage of some scattered showers and a couple of storms trying to organize together as we go into the evening hours. But that's going to be very short-lived, because once again, we head into that cooler portion of the day when those temperatures finally start dropping around sunset, and then a lot of the rain in the afternoon and even the storms don't have much left to work with. But this run of Future View doesn't quite look as robust as the last previous run, which definitely had a good cluster of some heavy rain and some thunderstorms that did have some fairly widespread impacts. But some of the rain may want to linger around in the morning hours on Wednesday before we do the same song and dance once again, a little bit more organization over to the east. So this is the third run in a row that I've seen Future View maintain this idea. Areas like Augusta, getting down to Statesboro, over towards Savannah, those areas look like they have the better chance of seeing some slightly more organized showers and thunderstorms. But back here in central Georgia, maybe not too much coverage of rain, but we could see some linger into the nighttime hours just a little bit longer than what we're thinking the course of today and tomorrow, So your next 3 days, what is your forecast looking like? The biggest thing I want to emphasize to you is the increase in rain chances from today into tomorrow. Monday is going to be more similar to what we had over the course of this weekend. Maybe a spotty shower, maybe a spotty run-of-the-mill summertime thunderstorm, but it actually will be the warmest day of the next couple because those rain chances are a little bit less in nature. When we pick up the rain chances, the coverage of rain looks to be a little more widespread. It does look like maybe some of those temperatures will not quite make it to the threshold that they will later this afternoon. So 95 for a high on Tuesday, 93 for a high on Wednesday. All in all, when you factor in the moisture, each day is probably going to feel pretty similar. In fact, Tuesday and Wednesday may feel a little bit warmer than what we have in store for later today, but it's still a 40% chance of a shower or a thunderstorm in light of these warm temperatures and in light of the return of that humidity. So something else to throw on your radar. This is the last day I will show you this graphic, but we are still expecting some above average traffic today, specifically between the 3 to 7 p.m. window. So that late afternoon into the evening window, obviously that's going to be a combination of folks making their way back from work, starting this new work week, and the folks that are still heading back into town, took a little bit of an extended weekend, enjoyed that last day on Sunday, and maybe didn't want to have to combat all the heavy PM traffic that was in store yesterday. But Monday should be the last day with above normal travel, and then we'll get kind of back to our typical just 9 to 5 commute. It's a little bit more crowded around 8 to 9 a.m., and then it's a little bit more crowded on the roads between 4, 5, and 6 o'clock in the afternoons. So your afternoon high temperatures actually doing a good thing. 96 and 95 going to be the warmest 2 days of the next 7 days, and that's today and tomorrow. Then we're back down into the low 90s, maybe even hovering slightly below average by the time we roll into the weekend, but the afternoon heat indices don't necessarily correlate that same way. You can see Tuesday and Wednesday are going to be the 2 days with max heat indices. They're going to start to flirt with heat advisory criteria. You have to get feels like numbers to 105, and they have to be fairly widespread, and they have to last for a good duration of time. So we're not entirely confident that we will see a heat advisory Tuesday and Wednesday, but that doesn't really matter. It's going to be hot virtually each and every day for the next 5 days, even 99. It looks a little bit better than this 102, but I promise you it's virtually going to feel the same. So make sure that you're taking frequent breaks in the shade if you have to be outdoors, people doing roofing work, people doing landscaping work. But if you can, try to take some breaks inside in that air-conditioned air, or just make sure that you are really hydrating. And please make sure that you're wearing sunscreen. I've been telling you that for a long time, but I'm the meteorologist that cried wolf on that because I got a little toasted this past weekend for the 4th of July. So now let's go into the long-range models. Do we have any change, any big weather features that are going to come through, usher in some drier air, anything tropical-wise on the long-range models that we should note? Well, it looks like Thursday afternoon, still kind of your pop-up afternoon and evening showers and thunderstorms. They can be fairly widespread each and every day. It does look like we have pretty decent coverage into the long-range models, whether that's all around us or whether that is over us in central Georgia. If it's in the near vicinity as we go into that afternoon to evening time frame, I do kind of classify it as the same rain percentage per se, because it's got, or everyone in the southeast, all of our neighboring states, including us, are locked in this air that's warm and that's muggy, and that's going to be prime fuel to the fire for sprouting some widespread afternoon rain. But it does look like maybe Saturday could have a little bit of clearing, not necessarily completely sold on that. And then we go into Sunday for the end of this upcoming weekend. Still not seeing really any relief in terms of something moving through, ushering in some drier air. And that takes us all the way to Monday at 4 p.m. where we're still seeing plenty of moisture and some of those shaded areas in green and blue all around us, but not necessarily coming to fruition here in central Georgia. But I've still maintained a 40% chance of seeing a shower or a storm each and every day throughout the next couple of days. The big difference in the short-term forecast is really just the uptick in rain chances from Monday afternoon into Tuesday and Wednesday. Yes, those temperatures are going down because the rain may pop up a little bit earlier than when we could typically see our peak high temperature in the afternoon hours, but low 90s with plenty of humidity is definitely still enough to contribute to widespread showers and a couple of storms. This pattern continues all the way into your weekend. If we can get temperatures around 91 for highs on Friday and Saturday, it would feel a lot more bearable than what we have in store for your Tuesday and your Wednesday, but it's still going to be hot all weekend long, especially if you don't look out and see any of the scattered rain each and every afternoon. So make sure you're keeping your body cool, hydrating, taking care of your skin, applying that sunscreen, but also be thankful if you do see something in the way of rain. I know it may not come in the version that you would necessarily please. It may be a thunderstorm, it could even be a strong thunderstorm or even to a severe thunderstorm, but a lot of that heavy rainfall getting dumped down at one time will do a really good number for knocking some of these high temperatures down into the low 80s, maybe even the upper 70s, depending on how long that rain does last. and that feels a whole lot better than what is in store if you do stay nice and sunny. Although it will be very humid after you see a rain shower, but 70s and humid feels a world of difference away from low 90s paired up with humidity and the surface heating, which can get well up into the triple digits. So hot and humid, and then the chance of rain increasing as we go into Tuesday, into every other day of your 7-day forecast. There's not much change going on, but we will continue to keep an eye on the long-range models, see if we see signs of anything that could provide us for some potential relief, maybe even knock some high temperatures down into the upper 80s, which I'm sure no one would be opposed to. But get used to seeing a 7-day forecast that is more reminiscent of this, with this thunderstorm icon each and every day. But also, there are peaks of sunshine. It's not completely cloudy on there because many of you will see your fair share of sunshine, warm temperatures, and the humidity that makes it feel a little bit warmer. But in that kind of environment, it is just prime for some afternoon rain. So we'll continue to keep you updated. And of course, if we do see an isolated strong to severe thunderstorm each and every afternoon, then we'll be keeping you updated about it during live in our evening show. And if anything is to go severe when it's not showtime, we will be going on our stream on 13WMAZ Plus or on YouTube to where you can be staying updated. But typically, when you get this type of pattern in the summer, it's a very short-lived thunderstorm, very short-lived intense weather impacts, and mainly would just be some gusty winds and some hail, just something you need to head inside for, ride it out within the safety of your home, then you'll be good to go for the rest of the night. So that's a look at your extended forecast. Like I said, it's kind of the same pattern each and every day, but we'll continue to check in each and every day at 10:30 to see if we have any changes on the horizon. But other than that, just make sure you're trying to find a way to stay cool and be thankful for any rain that does cool some of these blistering hot temperatures down.